Testing 1, 2, 3. Hey, Futurist, Jim Carroll from the virtual broadcast studio. Look, it's awful tough to try and get any type of work done because it's Masters Week. And I found myself sitting at the desk yesterday. I'm doing research for a number of upcoming in-person conferences, but I'm just sitting there on another screen. I got the Masters open watching it. If you're a golfer, you're really into this. This is one of the most exciting times of the year because it really shows that for the northern part of North America, golf season is open. And it's all the more special this year because, I mean, look, you can't help but notice Tiger is back. What was it, 18 months after his accident. And he's out there and he actually shot -1 yesterday. But you know what I do every year around the Masters is I sort of revisit what I talked about in 2010 when the PGA of America had me in for a talk on the future of golf, the future of sports, the future of next generations, the future of everything, in the context of how do we innovate in the world of golf? How can we as a sport be innovative? How can we, as a sport that is just bound up in so much tradition, align ourselves to the future? It was a fascinating talk, and I guess they liked it because they brought me back in 2016, where I headlined and opened the big, massive PGA merchandise show in Orlando. It was really cool. I took my son Tom down with me, and he got to hang out in the green room with Bubba Watson and Lee Trevino because, I mean, they were on stage with me. So, I mean, I'm obsessive about golf. But what I'm doing here today is I'm actually sharing some of the clips around those keynotes because both of those talks involved a lot of thoughts on disruptive trends, disruptive innovation, creativity. How do we align ourselves to the future? How do we challenge ourselves on tradition? So I'm going to share a number of the clips and sort of put in context some of the things that I was talking about with them. All of this is found on a page on my site, golf.jimcarroll.com. That's right, you can go to the page golf.jimcarroll.com and you'll find a whole mess of videos, a whole bunch of posts, a whole bunch of stuff because I'm writing and talking about this regularly. Not only that, this has become a keynote topic. I mean, I've developed a whole keynote topic that I've done for a number of organizations, which is driving the future, linking the acceleration of golf to the speed of business. And what I do is I take the concepts that I spoke about at both PGA events, all of which are around innovation and creativity and challenging ourselves on speed and putting those into perspective as to what that means for other business organizations. And that has proven to be an absolutely fascinating and fun keynote. It's really, really cool because a lot of my events are corporate events where you have a CEO of a global organization takes his or her team to some off-site retreat, talk about things. Often that's a golf course. And so I'm brought in to talk about the future of golf. Look, I was brought in once to St. Andrews to talk for a massive computer organization and can squeeze in around golf. So I'm going to share with you a number of clips which are designed to get you thinking about creativity, innovation, disruption, transformation. How do you change? A lot of these clips are on my site. If you visit golf.jimcarroll.com, you will find them. But let's start here. When they had me in 2010, one of the things I talk about that holds organizations back from the future is we sort of cling to the past. When new ideas are brought in, when new concepts are brought in, people battle back against those new ideas and new concepts because it's against tradition. And I dug out some fascinating research about what happened when the golf industry tried to introduce golf carts back in the 1960s. It didn't go well. Watch this clip.
I want you to think about this. I want you to think about the future by looking a little bit to the past. Some of you might remember when the golf cart first appeared on the scene, it was viewed as something that was going to ruin the game. Way back in 1997, the Christian Science Monitor. You can read articles that purists, are decrying the most noticeable post-war technological change in golf. The hordes of tech golf carts that are humming over courses. It's ruining the game. The former United States Golf Association president observed that, if it keeps up, we should call the game cartball. Go back to the days in which GPS first appeared in the scene. And how many complaints were there that this was a form of cheating? This is something that wasn't right for the game. This is something we should not be thinking about. But look what happened with the golfer. Look at the speed and velocity by which the golfer embraced the concept and made it a part of their game, and made it a part of their everyday life, and made it part of their everyday quest, to get a few more yards and get a little bit more accuracy. Think how quickly it came to change the game. The thing is,
this is what happens in industries when you're battling tradition and you're battling, that's the way we've always done it. We've always done it this way. When they introduced golf carts, everybody thought this was going to be an awful thing. When they introduced rangefinders, everybody thought it was going to be an awful thing. And the thing is, in every industry, we get a lot of technology, a lot of new ideas, and that in particular is accelerating because the next generation thinks and acts fundamentally differently. We know they have no attention span, and when they're coming onto a golf course, they're thinking and acting differently. So part of what I spoke about with the PGA was what can we do with this generation to align to the fact that they are very interactive, they're very different in how they think. Watch this clip.
Folks, the thing is, this next generation is fundamentally different. They thrive on change. They thrive on technology. Do you know that half of the global population right now is under the age of 25? We know that they're wired, we know they're entrepreneurial, we know they're collaborative, we know they're change-oriented, and they are now coming into every single industry, including the golf industry, and are saying we can do things differently. We have mobile devices, we have GPS, we have technologies, we have smart clothing, we have a flood of ideas which can help us to grow the game in new and different ways. Years ago, I spoke to the National Recreation and Parks Association and was addressing the issue of how do we solve the childhood obesity crisis in the US. And I was talking about an initiative that they have in Manhattan, Pac Manhattan, where people actually dress up as Pac-Man and run around the streets of Manhattan, and utilizing their mobile devices to track where people are. What a fantastic concept, as crazy as it might sound. If it is doing something to draw people into sport, it is a good thing. Think about the baseball bat in the future. Every single baseball bat in the future is going to have embedded technology, which will automatically do swing analysis. And every single golf club of the future will have the same technology embedded in it. Technology is coming. It is a massive wave. It is underway. It's going to speed up change in an industry that is very traditional. And the real question you need to ask yourself, it's not bad, it's different. And one other way you need to think about this is, this. Some people see a trend and see a threat. Real innovators see the same trend and see an opportunity. So what do you do to go forward into the future? Well, choose what type of person you want to be. There are three types of people. There are people who watch the future happen. There are people who make the future happen. And there are people who sit back and go, whoa, where did that come from? How did that happen? What you really need to do is this. Your future role as a PGA professional in the world of golf is that you need to think big, start small, and scale fast.
You know, I challenge the audience with that frame of mind to think about this next generation, and we're all out there with mobile devices and interactivity, and social media is arriving. And I said, you know, what if you put webcams on your par 3 so that if somebody had a hole-in-one, they could instantly share it. This actually captured the attention of a whole bunch of PGA professionals in the room, and we've actually seen a few courses do this since 2010, but there's so much opportunity to align to this new interactivity as a means to promote the sport. Watch this clip.
Think about what happens when somebody gets a hole-in-one. 10 years ago, they'd be out in the course, and they would slowly make their way back to the clubhouse. Word might filter slowly around that somebody's had an ace, and then they'd have the big celebration. What happens today? We've got generations out there who live and breathe in this interactive world. And if somebody has a fabulous day, they text it to their friends, and they text it to their friends, and it begins to exponentiate, and before you know it, you have 1,000 people showing up at the club, awaiting that free drink which has been promised to them, and the poor member hasn't bought hole-in-one insurance. Think about how our world is changing as it becomes more interactive. Think about what happens as the younger generation, who lives in a world in which they are bound up by the technology in their lives, becomes more a part of the game.
You know, it's fascinating to think about what is going on in the world of golf, because it's sort of paralleling what's happening in other industries where we're seeing the emergence of a lot of new ideas, new technologies, new methodologies, new ways of doing things. I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of manufacturing conferences about 3D printing. And a few years ago, I'm at my home golf club, and a fellow I get out for a round with has a 3D printed golf club. And I've used this story in a whole bunch of manufacturing and other conferences, because to me, this is just magical, because it really puts in perspective just how quickly the future is coming at us. Watch this.
About, where we are going in the future. I would be on conference stages in Las Vegas just 4 years ago, talking about 3D printing, talking about this mystical technology of the future. And all of a sudden, we are in a world in which Ping is actually demonstrating the capability to print a putter using 3D printing technology. Folks, what is going to happen in the world of golf is an acceleration of new technology that just doesn't involve clubs, but involves connectivity, that involves interaction, that involves new ways of thinking about the game. And the challenge for the PGA professional is this: do we view it as a negative, or do we view it as an opportunity to grow the game?
That's the thing. Do you view the future as an opportunity, or do you view it as a threat? Now, you'll notice I just mentioned there that we might have golf clubs with connectivity. Well, guess what? As a golfer, I actually have golf clubs with connectivity. I've been using a technology for several years now called Game Golf. And what happens is every single club has a sort of a chip device embedded in it. And it links to my phone, and the phone grabs the GPS. What I get is instant swing analysis, distance, insight into every single aspect of my game. As I would often joke on stage, it gives me really good insight into how bad a golfer I am. Not really, I'm a 15 handicap, I'm doing pretty good. But I talked about this in the context at a lot of other events over the years, that what we're witnessing with this type of idea is the acceleration of big data, analytics, information that can help us see into what is happening within an industry, or insight into all kinds of data that helps us better understand how things are unfolding around us. Watch this clip, because it's really kind of fun.
And think about the impact of Game Golf. Here's my dispersion rate. Not too great. You should see my son's. Pretty more incredible. But think about what is happening here. Suddenly, the introduction of technology, that we can use GPS to get detailed insight into our game and into our performance and into our weaknesses, overlaid on Google Maps, so we can look at our entire game. What is happening here is the emergence of technologies of golf carts with HD cameras built on top that captures every swing. So at the end of the day, you can share your round and highlight clips with your friends. The introduction of new ways of interacting, and the same thing that is happening in the world of healthcare is happening in the world of golf, and it's happening in the world of sports. The speed of innovation is shifting from within our industry, and it's shifting to the speed of Silicon Valley. companies that innovate at the speed of Apple and Facebook and PayPal. And it introduces a lot of issues.
And not only that, we were talking about the issues of branding and marketing and how do you promote a sport and really, how do you grow the game of golf? I mean, if there's one phrase that the PGA of America uses and everybody in the world of golf uses, it's how do we grow the game? This became less of an issue with COVID-19 because all of a sudden everybody had nothing to do and everybody joined a golf course. So you actually can't really join a course today. But I talked about innovative thinking in terms of growing the game of golf by talking about Mum 3.0. This was in 2010 and put it in perspective. If you really want to grow the game, you have to go after the mothers of the world because they're the ones who are making the decisions on where the kids are going to be spending their time at summer camp. Look at the statistics in 2010 and think about where we are today in terms of the influence that social media has on consumer purchasing decisions. And this now impacts every single industry from retail to healthcare to just about everything else. Give it a...
What do we do to reach out to this new demographic? In terms of getting them to our muni courses, in terms of positioning the concept of membership at a club. How do we reach out to them? We reach out to them in the space in which they live. 96% of the millennial population uses Facebook. Do you know that during the period of time that I'm up on stage here, 200 hours of video will have been added to YouTube? The time of period that it took new technologies to hit 50 million users at radio took 38 years. Television, it took 13 years. The internet took 4 years. The iPhone took 3 years. Facebook is adding 20 million users per month. Twitter, and we might not even know what it is and we might not even be using that, it is adding 300,000 people per day. Well, think about what happens at some of your muni courses. Think about what happens if you've got a child who is 12 or 13, the parents are interested in getting them into the game and into regular lessons, and perhaps, getting on a tour, getting into tournaments. What's happening with the parents today who might register them in such programs or who might be researching, for information on such programs? 65% of mothers today, we're talking mothers who are 20 to 35 years old, they use 5 or more forms of technology every single day. More than 40% of American mothers have Facebook profiles. 35% have accessed a weblog in the last week. 64% now regularly watch YouTube videos during their week. 15% maintain their own blog. And this all happens in the context in which 93.6% of those mothers seek the advice of others and 97.2% provide advice to others. I'm a young mother, and I'm thinking about putting my 12-year-old out to a variety of tournaments, and it's a big family commitment. There's a lot of logistics, there's a lot of questions. I get them onto the tournament, and they're out there, they're on the road, they're participating in various things. I'm proud of them, I'm sharing my insight. I'm not doing that over the backyard fence anymore. I'm doing that out on Facebook, where other mothers might be reading.
Here's the thing, you can look at the trends occurring in the world of golf and you can take these into virtually any industry because there's a lot of things that have happened that have involved disruption and creativity and innovation and challenging tradition and all the things we need to do from a leadership perspective to move our industry forward in a world in which the future belongs to those who are fast. One of the associations which actually brought me in after my PGA talk was the Sporting and Fitness Industry Association. The second time they brought me back in actually originally in 2006 when they were known as the Sporting Good Manufacturers Association. And I developed this talk for them called The Big Miss. And this was sort of a play on the book about Tiger and the struggles that he went through called The Big Miss. But what I was really doing was putting in perspective, if we think about the changes that have occurred in the world of golf with tradition and innovation and creativity and disruption, we can learn a lot about what we need to do within our own industry in order to go forward. And it was actually kind of fun in this keynote because I revisited some of the issues that I talked about in the previous PGA talks and put in perspective how those had evolved. This is a really, really good one.
What has happened here with the big miss is it is all too easy for organizations to become too complacent to the fact that we live in absolutely transformative times. It is estimated that in 10 years, we could see 40% of the S&P 500 no longer existing in their current forms if they fail to keep up with the whirlwind of technology and digital trends that are encompassing and transforming their industry. And we see the signs occurring everywhere. When I spoke to the PGA of America in 2010, Derek Sprague was elected as secretary. He's now the president of the PGA. And I reached out to him last week and I said I was speaking here. And I said, tell me what has happened in the last 5 years in terms of the transformation of technology upon your industry. And he said, well, if you think about it, 5 years ago, all the sophisticated tools that we could use, launch monitors, devices like Game Golf that were restricted to the pros, folks like Tiger, are now available to everybody. And our golf pros have had to learn to adjust in terms of their training, in terms of their role, in terms of their willingness to open up their minds to new ways of doing things. But devices like Game Golf that were restricted to the pros, folks like Tiger, are now available to everybody. And our golf pros have had to learn to adjust in terms of their training, in terms of their role, in terms of their willingness to open up their minds to new ways of doing things. But not only that, the biggest change that has come is with all these new reservation systems, all these new methodologies of booking time and a course. It's like our golf pros have had to become experts, just like they're running airlines and hotels and dealing with yield management and ensuring profitability with fast-moving markets. We have seen a whirlwind of change which we never anticipated. You cannot afford to become an organization that will suffer from the big miss. You cannot afford...
You can't be an organization that will suffer from the big miss of disruption and transformation and opportunities for creativity and opportunities for innovation. I mean, this is the type of stories that I weaved into my keynote for the PGA in 2010 and 2016, and it actually became the foundation for a whole series of keynotes through the years that followed. You can find all this stuff at golf.jimcarroll.com. A lot of good clips and a lot of good insight on creativity and disruption, innovation, and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to close out by playing you a couple of clips. I'm going to close out with my 10 great words that I used to close the original PGA talk, because they're really the guidance I provide to organizations, because people are always asking, well, what do I do with all this insight that you've shared? I close out with the 10 great words because they give you an action plan for going forward. And I'm going to have to go because another one of my clients, actually NASA, is launching a rocket in 41 minutes. So I got to go watch that because I'm going to do a show next week about the time, actually twice, when NASA had me in for a talk on creativity, disruption, innovation, and trends. So I'm going to close with the 10 great words. I'm going to close with another compilation clip which puts in perspective, a whole bunch of the stuff which is going on with.
The more experience I build up in trying new ideas,
Didn't do that right. And share the insight with you on how you can use this information to your advantage. So first the 10 great words, and then a compilation close. So thank you for watching. Avoid the big miss. You can learn a lot from the world of golf as to what is going on in your industry, and learn more at golf.jimcarroll.com. Here's 10 great words.
the more experience I build up in trying new ideas, the more experiential capital I build up. I think there should be 10 words that you're thinking about through the next day and a half as you discuss the issue of your future, your PGA. What do you need to do? You need to observe. You need to observe. I've shared with you some of the trends which I see occurring in the world. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of other trends which are impacting the game. You need to observe. It's your opportunity to observe the trends and think about what the trends mean. What does it mean in terms of where we are going? What does it mean in terms of what we've done in the past? And what do we need to change from so many different perspectives to keep up with this very fast future? Dare. Where do we take risks? Where do we try to do things we haven't done before? Where do we step outside our zone of comfort, and try to do something new? Because we know the only way to get forward into the future is by trying to do things we haven't done before. Where do we banish? Watch through the next 2 days. If anybody comes out with the phrase, "You can't do that because we've always done it this way. It won't work. It's the dumbest idea I ever heard." We can't do that because of tradition. Innovative organizations are prepared to banish some of the thinking which holds us to the past. Tradition will always be a part of the game. And your challenge is, how do we innovate and how do we change and how do we adapt within the confines of tradition, which is so critically important to our future? How do we try? How do we try to do things we haven't done before? How do we establish a number of PGA-oriented projects by which we're trying to explore some of these new areas with which we're so unfamiliar? How do we try and do that which we haven't done before? How do we question? How do we question some of the assumptions, routines, and habits, that have built up an organizational sclerosis that holds us back from trying to deal with the future? Most importantly, how do we focus on growth? How do we transition out of a period of time in which we're focused on running the business better to a period of time in which we need to focus more on growing the business and transforming the business? And how do we adapt to the fundamental realities that exist in the nature of our future and potential membership base with the change that is occurring in this country, to get them more engaged in the game, to develop a new group of mentors who could appeal to the young people at this transformative moment in time when exercise and golf are becoming synonymous in a way that we have not seen before? How do we seize that transformative time and work with it? How do we come up with a plan of action that we can put in place now? The future belongs to those who are fast. You do those 9 things through the next 2 days, as you focus on your future, your PGA, and you get to the 10th most important word of all, and that's enjoy. Thank you very much.
So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy this. I think it's going to be very enlightening. Please welcome Jim Carroll.
What I want to focus on with you today is what is happening with the customer. What's happening with the golfer? What are some of the key trends that might impact you in the future? And what do you need to be thinking? And what do you need to be doing to deal with the reality of change and the pace of change that is occurring today? Think about what happens as the younger generation, who lives in a world in which they are bound up by the technology in their lives, becomes more a part of the game.
This next generation is fundamentally different. They thrive on change. They thrive in technology.
We've got generations out there who live and breathe in this interactive world. They view the world in a way which is substantially and fundamentally different. Think about how our world is changing as it becomes more interactive.
What are you going to do with that kid whose entire worldview is reflected through their mobile device?
Their expectations of what they will do with sport will undergo a change the likes of which we have never seen before.
Think about the baseball bat in the future. Every single baseball bat in the future is going to have embedded technology, which will automatically do swing analysis. And every single golf club of the future will have the same technology embedded in it. What is going to happen in the world of golf is an acceleration of new technology that just doesn't involve clubs, but involves connectivity, that involves interaction, that involves new ways of thinking about the game. And the challenge for the PGA professional is this: do we view it as a negative, or do we view it as an opportunity to grow the game? Technology is coming. It is a massive wave. It is underway. It's going to speed up change in an industry that is very traditional. There are 3 types of people. There are people who watch the future happen. There are people who make the future happen. And there are people who sit back and go, whoa, where did that come from? How did that happen? Choose what type of person you want to be.
Thank you very much.